Kerala Section. Today we are gathered here for the 41st Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series presenting a discussion on modeling a self-organization. It is jointly organized by the Institution of Engineers, Kerala State Centre, Computer Society of India, Trivandrum Chapter, Project Management Institute, Kerala Chapter, Internet Society, Trivandrum Chapter, Vakka Maulavi Foundation Trust, Trivandrum, IEEE EMBS, Kerala Chapter. This session provides an opportunity for you to explore your knowledge on how organizations can move forward much faster, make better decisions, get insight on the act of managing dynamic learning, and to establish a purpose-driven organization. Now, as a keynote addresser for today, we have our eminent speaker, Mr. Harikuttan Kochukunne, Managing Consultant and Honorary Secretary of Project Management Institution, Kerala Chapter. He's a seasoned project and program management professional with over 16 years of industry experience, a passionate entrepreneur, and founding member of 4 startups. It is such a great honor for us to have you today among us, sir. Before moving on to the welcome speech, for those of you who are joining us today, please make sure that your microphones are muted and participants can type in your questions in the chat window anytime during the program. Selected questions will be discussed at the end of the session. Now, I call upon Ms. Vaishnavi from IEEE Department for the welcome speech. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Ms. Athena. Good evening, all. Make your life a masterpiece. Imagine no limitations on what to do, have, or do. Good evening to everyone present here. And with immense pleasure, I welcome you all to the 41st talk of Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series on the topic Modeling a Self-Organization. To talk about the topic with great pleasure, I welcome Mr. Harikuttan Kochukunne, Managing Consultant and Honorary Secretary of Project Management Institute, Kerala Chapter. He's a seasoned project and program management professional with over 16 years of industry experience. Currently, he's the Honorary Secretary of Project Management Institute, Kerala Chapter. Sir, it's a great honor for me to welcome you for handling the session. Welcome, sir. And I also invite...
Thank you, Vaishnavi.
Thank you, sir. And I also invite each of the honorable dignitaries gathered here for this session. Once again, welcoming you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaishna. Now let me welcome Ms. Akila Gauri Shankar to introduce our speaker. Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
To introduce Mr. Harikuttan Kochukunne, our beloved Honorary Secretary of Project Management Institute, Kerala Chapter, to this august audience. He's a seasoned project, program, and portfolio management professional with over 16 years of industry experience. He's a management consultant, change evangelist, and enterprise transformation consultant. He supports organizations to change the rules of games. An expert in setting up organizational functions, program and project management function, and organizational improvement policy making. He's a great mentor, which many of you who know him well will acknowledge. A passionate entrepreneur and founding member of 4 startups. Currently, the Honorary Secretary of Project Management Institute, Kerala Chapter. He has a unique management style with attention to detail and tactful stakeholder interactions, which are all worth emulating. Harikuttan is also a relationship builder and passionate about leveraging relationships to improve team dynamics and drive change within an organization. His deep knowledge in diverse subjects can be seen from the 4 major publications to his credit, which are all diverse topics. Currently, lead enterprise project management office with the Big 4. He has also been associated with various NGOs in leadership roles to support the needy. Harikuttan is an alumnus of TKM Institute of Management with an MBA in Finance and Marketing. He has many certifications to his credit. He is one among the first few to be certified as Disciplined Agile Senior Scrum Master in Kerala, introduced last year by PMI USA. He is the DA champion from PMI Kerala Chapter. In the current pandemic scenario, when many organizations are struggling to maintain sustained growth, Today's talk by Harikutan on modeling a self-organization is sure to motivate us to be high-performing, self-motivated team members. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I welcome our honorable guest, Mr. Harikutan sir, for presenting a discussion on the topic. Welcome, sir.
Thank you all for that warm welcome and details. I'm overwhelmed. So it's indeed a great pleasure and privilege for me to present this topic on this August gathering. Um, I wanted to do, a similar session earlier, but because of so many assignments, couldn't make it. But I think this is a really good platform for, people from different industry to present their perspective. So the topic today, modeling a self-organization, probably many of the veterans here are very familiar with this topic because it's in the research journals for many years. Uh, but it got some kind of attention in the last few years due to the digital disruption and the pandemic situation. So this is very abstract, and the how to model a self-organization within any of the existing organization is a topic that has to be discussed in detail. But I'm giving a very high-level glimpse of what is this self-organization all about, and if I'm saying few objectives, so I set like three objectives here. One, to understand the basic concepts of self-organization. Then, why organization need to change during this digital age, and how self-organization concept can be brought into business. So, in that how part, I'll be explaining like how an organization can build a self-organization concept into their existing practices. So let's set the context, right? So um, I know that many of us are working with companies with, a command control or a hierarchy, or even a bureaucratic structure for many years, and they will now agree that the way we were working is not working anymore, right? So digital age actually proposes new challenges and opportunity to leaders of any type of organization. Both the rapid change in technology and unprecedented volume of disruption worsen the need of different organization culture. So as it disrupts the business and society, it presents opportunities and challenges as well, like for leadership. So the digital era presents a leader with favorable circumstances to influence and lead their business stakeholders through deep cultural change. They need to have some deep cultural change, as well as to envision new business model and opportunities while building and expanding new ecosystem. So, uh, so that is where we need some innovative concept to address these changes. And I'm further going into the detailed digital age leadership challenges. As you read through, it's about the leadership to prepare your team members to assume situational or competency based leadership roles. We cannot follow the traditional model, and the leaders need to develop a culture of trust, purpose, engagement, commitment, and collaboration. And they need to develop a passion for learning and ability to make on the path forward. And they need to leadership need to find a people first principle and a willingness to change uh, their leadership style. So they all wanted their people to be at their best, most creative and innovative. However, they will be challenged to overcome and replace some of the well-established management principles that we usually follow. So my proposal today, or this concept is actually something about a topic called biomimicry. Probably many of you are aware of, which is a concept model which copied from nature and applies these designs and process to solve some of the human problem. So I am actually depending on the the nature's theory and the ants lifestyle, or the way of working of ant as an organization, as a team, or as a self-organizing team. So we will be understanding the self-organization practice through the life of an ant, probably. So that is the way I orchestrate this particular session. So as you know, nature is always nature is like depends on self-organization always. We all know, like the grass, growing grass is like a self-organizing phenomenon. So in nature, um, the cycle of seasons happens, or the tree grows, animal find food. All these activities are like done without any human intervention or direction from us, right? We don't need a parliament to pass a law, or president to sign an or executive order to flow the river. So these all are like natural, and it's all based on the principle of self-organization. So all around us, nature is self-organizing to move, evolve, change, and nourish itself. Now, let me take you through a small video of an ant colony. So let me know if you're not, if you are able to see this video. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. All right. So this is an ant colony where they are in search of food, and this is a very famous video. Almost 8 to 10 million people view this. So they identified a large millipede, and they are planning their attack. So they organize their system, and you can see it. So on the count of 2 or 3, they attacked. See that? And let's see the slow motion of the attack. Right? So we may think that these guys are running here and there, and they are not, or they are not aware of what to do, but it's not like that. They have a plan. They have a definite plan in place, and they know what to do. See that? So 14 minutes they took to paralyze this particular millipede, and now they need to carry it into their colony. So this is actually a very famous research. There are a lot of research. If you see it in the science direct journal, or biology journal, or even mathematical journals, where you can see this formation. This formation is a mathematical formation. We'll go through that in a while. See, they are taking this millipede to their ant colony in a different. There is a way of managing, this particular movement. So, which we will discuss in the upcoming slides. All right. So my point is, there was no leader in that particular group who asked, or there was no manager who asked somebody okay, do this, let's all do this way kind of direction, but rather it was a very self-organized way of managing things. So the question here is, if nature can self-organize, can organization do this too? So why do we think our organization and human beings need direction and control to accomplish anything? So on an individual level, if you think, our bodies are filled with, the system that self-organize, right? Our digestive, or maybe our our respiratory system, or nervous, or the circulatory system, all are like self-organized. So we don't use up our conscious brain space to direct all these systems. So these systems figure out what need to happen and make it so. So if our bodies can organize, self-organize, why can't we self-organize at work? That's the next question. So why is it so difficult to believe that our staff members can initiate and organize their own work to serve the large purpose of the organization? Or why do we structure and staff our organization in such a way that reinforce command and control of creating environment, like nature, actually, um, that are designed for self-organization? Ideally, it should happen. So there are some key nature's design principle. Many of you are familiar with this, but I just wanted to list it down. Some of them are like, waste is never wasted. So in nature, there is nothing called waste, because everything is utilized. All these concepts, the fit form to function. So all the form, the way something is designed, or if it is a bird, the it is fit for the function it is intended to perform, rewards cooperation. So there is a reward from the nature for the cooperation, and it banks on diversity. um, Nature curbs excess from within. So you can imagine like why and how a fire happens in a forest during some season. Nature has its own way of managing that things. The critical thing is depends on local expertise and self-organization. So if you look at the biodiversity of one location to other location, it's not the same. So it's locally organized, and there is a local expertise, and it is self-organized. The nature taps the power of limit. So we all know everything is limited. If the age of some living object is limited, then intervention disappear into system. Since it's a large system, any intervention is disappearing into the system. So I believe that there are pockets in most of our organization that have learned to unleash the talent of their staff members, so that they work together in a synergetic way to create excellent results. So they work together differently, they are led together differently, and they produce differently. So there is an option for us to learn from the nature and um, do the self-organization. Now, what need to be changed? So if some organization need to change, need to be in a self-organized environment, what need to be changed? So we need to understand that organizations are interdependent living systems. So think of your organization as a chart of tree. So the frontline staff are the leaves, and play a critical role in converting energy from sun into the living resource. So we need to understand that there is an interdependency in living system. Then organization can no longer act like a machine. So um, just like the normal, our the traditional management concept of managing and controlling system may not work in future. So we cannot have a mechanistic organization. So it's about the whole and how people connect with others and the external environment. And the third point is feedback loops and adoption are key. So a living organization is in constant change. Every time it's changing, right? So the environment is changing, hence the organization also change, because it's part of the whole system. So instead of driving change down into the hierarchy. So leaders would use the information and feedback to unleash the adaptation to changing conditions. So this is what we need to understand. Now let's go into the art of self-organization. What is self-organization? I'm going into the definition of it. Just to give you some glimpse, I know that this is a very new topic in a business world. So I have taken some of the definition for your better understanding. And if you have questions, probably you can park it and we'll discuss towards the end. So self-organization is it's also called in our social science, it's called a spontaneous order, which is a process um, whereby some form of overall order arises from a local interactions between parts of an initially disordered system. So this process can be spontaneous when sufficient energy is available. We don't need any control by an external agent. So it's actually often sorry sorry for that. Yeah, so the process can be actually spontaneous, and we don't need any external agent to control it. And it's like it's often triggered um, by some random fluctuation with some positive feedback. So the resulting organization is like a wholly centralized, distributed all over the components of the system. It's not like an independent component, but across the component of the system. So at simplest level, a self-organizing team is one that does not depend on or wait for a manager to assign work. Instead, these teams find their own work and manage the associated responsibilities and timelines. So self-organizing team also take on the responsibility of choosing the most effective and efficient way to complete their work and regularly look ways to improve their experimentation. So for this structure to work, self-organizing team must have a high sense of ownership and responsibility. Equally as important, they need to communicate often and trust the capabilities of everyone in the team. So this is very critical because it's a cultural shift. Now, if you look at it, personally or professionally, if you analyze what motivates us, so what is the surprising truth about what motivates us? So there is a book called Drive by Daniel H. Pink, where you know he says it's a not great leadership that gives us the drive to do things, but these are the 3 points he is establishing. One is autonomy, second one is mastery, and third one is the purpose. So see, we like to do things the way we think it is good. So that's called autonomy. Mastery is like we wanted to become competent in things that we do, and the purpose is the thing we do have to have some kind of purpose, right? So leaders who are going to facilitate in implementing the self-organization or self-organized team need to use these simple motivating factors to gain more effective results. Now let's see um, how we can model a self-organization. So as I said earlier, organization emerges as local interaction. So that's critical because if there is no local interaction, the teams or the resources may not be able to understand what is happening in reality. So rather than from the top, if somebody gives or assign a task and they are just doing without knowing what exactly they are doing or what is the purpose, then this particular function may not help any companies or any organization in future. Now, if you wanted to set up a self-organization, the another important point that you need to understand is we cannot have the same system implemented for all type of organization. So it depends on the context you work, and hence you need to have different operating systems. Now, autonomy, connections, and emergence are the three major key points that you need to understand. Autonomy means having sufficient levels of influence of how you work and what you work with. So I mentioned about the previous author, Dan Pink. He talks about autonomy as the freedom to select a team, task, time, and technique. That is who you work with, what you work with, and when do you do the work and how to go about it, right? Then the next point is connection. So you need to understand the knowledge should be shared. And if someone in a team is less knowledgeable than somebody, with the local interaction, with the self-organization concept, that person can acquire knowledge in that particular area. And the third point is emergence. It's a process whereby large entities or patterns or regularities arise through interaction among smaller or simpler entities. So local interaction will help resources to interact more, and with that a common pattern will emerge, and that can be extended to a large entity or at a global level. Now, what would leadership look like if it depend on a self-organization? So suppose if you are a leader and if you implement self-organization in an organization, what are you looking at? So I know that many of our members here are very seniors, and most of them might have already worked with some of the high performing team, or we may be part of some of the high performing team or leading it. So the high performing team I have worked or led are filled with people who are very clear about the purpose of organization. It's really an important point. We need to understand, the team need to understand the purpose of the organization. So the individual team members are competent and work to continue learning to even better. So then they should have that mindset to learn further and explore more knowledge so that they can perform better. So team members are treated with respect, and unique talents of the team members are utilized and optimized. So that is the beauty of local interaction, where you can understand the unique talents of team, and you can utilize them and probably optimize their skill set. Another thing is that this team learn to trust each other, right, and appreciate distinctive roles and responsibilities they share. So if the leader of this kind of a team was, suppose if he's on leave or extended his sick leave, the team and its performance would continue, and the team members would fill the gap, the team leader's absence, and they would make sure that the business is normal. So just imagine a situation where team is taking the responsibility of what they intended to perform without the direction of a manager or a leader. So these teams are like fun place to work, and they are motivated by satisfaction embedded in their own accomplishment, right, and contribution. So team members display emotional intelligence and they work through tensions and conflict without taking things personally, or they won't create any drama in the workplace. So this is what self-organization look like a team, and it gives a framework for how it could look in an organization. So that is what the leadership would like to see from a self-organization. Now, to achieve that, what are the focus areas probably the leadership need to look into? That is what we are looking next. So I try to come up with there are many research available, many articles available on this topic, but for me, um, I think these are the four areas of leadership to to set up a self organization. The the main thing, or the central one, is self, individual, right? Anybody who is part of that organization. So but even if even though I've written is self or individual, it is the organization to choose that particular person. So there are again many citations available where the best performing team, or maybe the organization who are practicing self organization, the leaders, they clearly explain that the leaders of the organization should understand what kind of people should be hired into the organization. So that is very, very critical. Don't just look at the technology skill set of people, because next day if the technology changes, people will leave the organization. So it's about the individual who have the passion to learn continuously, and he or she is himself focusing on their personal well-being, and have the agility. Okay, so these are the there are many other points, but these are the three major qualities probably we can look when we are discussing about self. Now self translates to teams, where a team should be always an inspiring team. I explained earlier earlier in my slides, right? So if the individuals are motivated, we will be having an inspiring team, and they should be able to give a sense of belonging when somebody is part of that team. And we should make sure that there is a diversity in that team. The next element is business, where you need to understand from a leadership team, you need to understand how you can adopt to the enterprise agility, and the leadership should be passionate enough to understand the dynamics of business, and they should have an innovative mindset. And the ecosystem, if you come there in the ecosystem, you have the customers and the stakeholder is a broader word which represents other than customer in this particular context, and the technology enablement to meet the challenges ahead. Okay, so now we are going to understand how can we have the desired outcome with self organization. Again, I'm coming back to the ant story. It's yet another ant story. So there is an interesting data available. This is probably there is a world record for this particular ant colony, which is like 3,700 miles, stretch over 3,700 miles, something around like 600 kilometers in our term, and I think it constructed some 80 years ago, and it's still alive. So the world's largest colony, it has been completely constructed by ants who self-organize through interactions of individuals. There is no blueprint, no leader, just self-organization and collaboration, right? So ants are actually capable of creating incredible structures out of nothing, and that structures are in comparison, if that would be like as high as some of our high-rise buildings, bridges which allow them to go on the expedition and water draft to to escape from flooding, and colonies actually are illustrated as super organisms. So a collection of organisms which behaves as one single uh, probably organism. So it's a collection, but it performs as a single organism. So the ant work through collective intelligence, even though they are incapable of our conscious kind of thinking and organization, right? So scientists have been studying the behavior of ants for decades, and there are some way or other way like towards understanding the rules that they apply, but we don't have the entire data available. That research is still happening. But the main thing is that they are not waiting for any coordination or any leader to command them to do something that they need to do. So what is understood is that and ants follow the formula of a complex decentralized system. Everything that they do on the basis of interaction of many individual ants rather than having one leader, right? And they follow few simple rules to make the system success. So one of those role is that they need to interact at local level, right? So when ants are constructing, they interact with ants on a local level, and that ants who collecting the dirt collaborate. Those are at the creating a pile of dirt work together, and those who are forming structure are also stick together. So the structures they are working on emerge without any central coordination. There is no central coordination, or somebody is directing them to do uh, this way or that way. So their organization skill are actually phenomenal, and many of the management practices are being adopted from these concepts. So if you see the last point, no ant sees big picture, uh, and no ants tell another ant what to do. So these all may be contradicting our existing management concepts. We always used to say you try to see the big picture, right? So big picture won't help you in this kind of situation, uh, but ants proving that without having even that big picture visualization, you can have big things materialized. Now, there are some patterns of self-organization. I'm not going to explain this whole, but just to give you some perspective, this is again a mathematical formulation, bifurcation, synchronization, self-organized waves, and self-organized criticality. I'll be sharing this deck in PDF format so that you can check this. But these are some of the patterns scientists have identified, basically how ants are uh, self-organizing themselves, and that is helping them to construct any complex kind of structure, and that in a much better fashion than human beings. Now, what if we depend on self-organization in our organization? So just imagine if we are going to implement self-organization in our organization. So we actually need to shift our focus from the traditional, I mentioned that, from our traditional leadership style to self organization concept. So there would be use very fewer resource for management and oversight. We may not be having enough resources to manage at the top or the middle layer. um, when we have staff members who can actually initiate and organize their own work, right? So and they do it in cooperation with others, and also they are aligning their work with the purpose of the organization. That is a base, right? So they align their work with the higher purpose of the organization. Then we wouldn't need to spend time and money and or attention on supervision. So somebody may ask, maybe at the end, is it possible, because you are telling some story. Now supervision and management would shift to coaching and development, and helps people to see the meaning of their work, and how that contributes to the larger success of the organization. So the traditional term manager or people manager may shift to a different terminology in future. So the role from directing or managing or guiding people to do what, or not guiding, so directing and controlling people may shift to the kind of um, a role where you are helping the team to achieve more success, right? So that uh, shift the build capacity of self organization. So we'll be having more capacity when you remove that management layer from our traditional organization, and it would be more satisfying for employees to have input in decision that is affecting them, right? And allow them to help create solution to problems that they experience at their workplace. That's the beauty of it, because many a time they won't be getting an opportunity to find a solution for the problem that they face in their work environment. But in this case, it is happening. So the solution will be more viable, and people will be more interested to perform. So there would be less time wasted again on the on all the organization drama, right? So pointing fingers and all these things, but we won't be having that kind of chaos within the system. And individual accountability you know is something like we will make sure so that nobody can blame others. Then the process and structures, we know, right? So the process and structures are like most of all the time it's like cumbersome, and we are looking them as a showstopper for many of the processes. But process and structures would be designed for the um, effectiveness and efficiency, not as a vehicle to have control over others in the organization. So we won't be using any of our processes to control anybody in the organization. So for that, what organization need to do? So this is again a concept from different um, insights. I've collated it together, where in the middle you should have a purpose-driven organization, right? And we need to collaborate among teams or variety of stakeholders to make a better organization. We need to set the context. This is critical. We need to understand what context we belong and how that is affecting the resources. Then the organization should be responsive to change, and we need to make sure that the peer-to-peer interactions are happening, and we need to deliberately do that. And the one in the middle is a servant leadership practice. The organization need to take some action to enable the management style of our traditional managers, shifting from a typical management to a servant leadership model. Now, some of the things we need to drop if you wanted to adopt to self-organization. So in order to reap the benefits of self-organization, we need to, control. We need to drop our control on people. So because, if you are controlling people too much, that will hinder, the development of self-organization. It should be like localized interaction, and that itself will give some kind of, natural control. Now, please don't reward any person who is blind and obedient and always saying yes sir kind of thing, because they depend on direction from others. They cannot be into a self organization. Then loyalty to an individual leader instead of the larger mission and scope or purpose of the business. So self-organization requires alignment with our higher purpose, with the organization higher purpose, not individual loyalty. And and our assumption that higher levels of compensation to flow to people who are directing and controlling others, instead of assuming that many people contribute to the success of the company. So we need to understand all the people are contributing to the success of the company. So we need to shift our focus from all these things to a much broader scope so that we can implement a self-organization. Now, I'm going to give you some insight on how we can model it. Okay. Um, this is bit complex again. Like it's not the same for all organization, which I mentioned earlier. So for different context, we will be having different operating system. And self-organization or self-organization teams are not put together randomly. You cannot randomly choose and make it as a self-organization team. Three concepts you need to understand. You know, from a traditional point of view, you are managing and controlling all these things, but we are moving away from that to training, coaching, and mentoring. So the people first approach is basically on this: training, coaching, and mentoring. And we need to make sure that we have a cross-functional team. So over the time, some of the members who are, less knowledge than somebody else, will develop their skill. They will broaden their skill, or some may leave from one team to other team also, but it's fine. But we need to make sure that we have a cross-functional team. Then we need to make sure that we are encouraging localized decision making, and there is a diversity in team. Now, um, so if you wanted to model it, for example, this is just a sample, right? So first of all, you need to understand the type of organization that you are. So there are two things: one is a scale, another one is the risk. So there is a indication here, a small scale, medium scale, and large scale. More than thousands of people, like more than 1,556. It's large. And how about the appetite of risk of your organization? For example, a high risk means people die when we fail. That kind of industry. Low risk means people don't die when we fail. Is that a question? Okay, I think somebody unmuted. Okay, so I'm not going to explain this in detail, but if you look at the large scale and a high risk quadrant, not quadrant, where you can see in this context, right? So we cannot afford certain kind of mistake, because if you made a mistake, people will die. So we cannot have that. So in that case, you should have continuous training program for complex new way of working. So we cannot make it in one go, right? So the organization need to plan it, and continuous training should be there to practice a self-organization concept there. But if you look at a small scale and low risk, where most of our startup comes in, and it's very easy. So if you ask me how effectively you can implement a self-organization, I would say in any startup, the startup team can easily implement, because it's a small team first of all. Then the risk is low. That again depends. If the I'm talking about a low risk organization, so the possibilities are endless, and they can easily manage. So that most of the innovations are happening in the startup context. So some of the large organizations, since they are too huge to manage, they are adopting to the concept of startup within start-ins, right? So within the organization, they are having that, so that the self-organization concept can be implemented and more innovation can be brought in. Now, there are few uh, uh, foundations. Sorry, so there are three levels of modeling where we can identify. One is the foundation, another one is people and the outcome. So in the foundation, the organization goals, the knowledge of the organization, communication system established, the feedback mechanism. We discussed this all point in the previous slide. The feedback mechanism, the way of working, and the expectation or the high standard that we define at the organization level are the foundation. And at the people level, we need to have motivated individuals, and group development should be encouraged, and people need to be trained on group development. And the outcomes are values, results, and balance. So I'll be touch base on balance on the upcoming slide, but the outcome will be a value driven organization, and you have definite results from what you planned. So that is the model that probably you can adopt if you are interested to implement self organization. Now there are some key characters which I list down here. So starting from collaboration and communication, we discussed that we need to have high levels of collaboration and communication, teamwork. There is no need of explanation. Competency, we need to make sure that we are having people with enough competency, and if some competency is less, we need to make sure that because of our training, continuous training activity, we need to influence people to acquire that competency. Then there should be a regular growth and improvement, right? So any self organization will be having regular growth and improvement. Then trust between between the sources, trust with the customers, trust with the stakeholders. So trust is one of the key character of self organization. Respect again. So motivation, it's again, people should have the motivation to perform. So that is one of the characteristic of self-organization. Transparency, no explanation needed. Transparency is key because there is no managerial, there is no hierarchical thing. So transparency is critical. Ownership, individual ownership is one of the key characteristic, and the commitment. So with all these characters, we can identify a self-organization. Or if somebody is really interested to implement a self-organization, these are the characters they need to inculcate, right? Now I was discussing about balance. So I'm just giving an example here from a software development team perspective. Actually balance refers the trade-off, continuous trade-off between one side on the other side. For example, permission to fail versus the success expectation, specialization versus generalization. So all these kind of balances. So there is no right and wrong way of placing this in, because uh, there is a context which matters. So in certain cases probably you may need to shift towards right, or maybe in some cases you may need to shift towards left, depend on the type of organization or the context that your organization perform. So um, I was trying to give some perspective on the self-organization and its concept, how we can do, how we can implement it, how we can model it. And these are some of the benefits, expected benefit if you implemented this concept. One is team buying and a shared ownership. There is a motivation which leads to enhanced performance level of the team. um, you will be having an innovative and creative environment which is conducive to growth, and improved or increased employee satisfaction and increased business agility. So in conclusion, right, so self-organization, if you establish that, that will give you a purpose-driven business setup organization, and we'll be having a overall vision and purpose that everyone can follow. We can enable training, coaching, and mentoring practices in organization. The organization will reduce hierarchy of business and improve peer-to-peer communication. That self-organization will encourage local decision making, improved diversity in the team, individual accountability. Then again, learning is encouraged, motivation is always appreciated, and improve diversity in team. So that's all from my side on this topic. I know that it's an abstract topic, so I'm open for question if you have any.
Okay, thank you, sir. That was a very wonderful presentation. I hope the audience have gained a lot of information from the presentation of yours. And I also found that was a very useful session. And we can see that there are some questions awaiting you. So we shall move on to the Q&A session.
Yeah.
So the first question is from Mr. Suhere. How do we adopt these principles in an existing organization?
Okay. So that is what I was trying to explain, how we can adopt this principle into existing organization. First of all, Mr. Suhai, we need to understand what type of organization it is, and it's not the same for all organization. For example, if it's a IT organization, then the way you are approaching to a business will be different from a manufacturing organization. So we need to understand what kind of organization we are into, first of all, and then we need to understand what is the purpose of your organization. So that is one thing. So if you remember in the ISO or any kind of standards that we defined, was helping the organization to understand their vision, mission, and role. Now in this during this period, probably you need to understand what is the real purpose of this organization, why we have this organization, and with that we need to understand how we can probably adopt the concepts of self-organization so that the large scope of purpose-driven organization can be met. So it requires a lot of other, I haven't included all those things here, but happy to extend some support, because there are too many good people who are practitioners of agile and disciplined agile. For example, our PMI Kerala president, Dr. Krishna Kumar. So many other people can advise on how you can identify the ways of implementing a self-organization. So I know it's not straightforward because it's different for organization. Yeah, Dina.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question is from Mr. Krishna Kumar. How can we discover that our organization is ready for self-organization? And is there any proven methodology to find it out?
Great. I can simply put an answer to that. If it's an organization which practicing agile concepts, any agile concepts, then that organization is an organization which is ready for adopting to the self-organization concept, because the entire organization got some insight on the practices, few areas. So it's easy for organization who are familiar with agile concepts. For other organization, we need to have those training, mentoring, and coaching exercise. People need to understand this transformation. So it's a cultural change. So any other organization which follows a traditional management style or project management style, any management style, would need some kind of guidance and support to implement it. What was the second part, Athena?
Is there any proven methodology to find it out?
Yeah, so this is the litmus test, probably quick check. Like if they are practicing any of the agile practices, then it's easy to understand. Otherwise, we need to do organizational culture assessment, and then the leadership need to understand, to
So I guess your audio is muted.
sorry, am I audible
Yes,
now?
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you
So
are.
yeah, so we can conduct a organization cultural assessment first of all. If it is not a agile organization, then based on that, probably we can plan our leadership discussion, then to understand the purpose of organization, all those flows that we discussed today.
Okay. There is another question. Given the predominantly egoistic nature of man, is it not a very idealistic expectation to be able to put together groups that will function as a self organized team in a wide range of industries?
Absolutely. So we are not discussing across industry. This is an organization specific context that we were discussing. Yeah. If I don't know who asked the question, but
It's
if you
Venkatesh Narayan.
okay, Venkatesh, if we can see some of the articles of HBR, like the Harvard Business, in during 2012, those time, there were contradicting articles which was explaining something like innovation and agile concepts cannot go together. But eventually, because of the digital innovation and the disruption, those concepts are now going together. So similarly, this topic is very abstract in nature now, because some of the organizations who are practicing it are practicing and it's not exposed into the external environment. Um, and uh, uh, the real problem here is this pandemic situation urged many of the companies to transform the way that they think, and the leadership model also is changing. It's like a transformative leadership model. So if you look at the latest sessions of any of the top tier business schools, it's not the typical management that we need. It's something like a transformative leadership, or the servant leadership model. So the approach to people is changing, so the egoistic nature won't stay there for many years. So it's going to end. Probably a
Okay, thank
prediction.
you, sir.
Yep.
Okay. Next question is from Harindra Lal. Sir,
Uh-huh.
is it not too much to extrapolate from an ants organization which
Uh-huh.
is inbuilt in them?
Which is inbuilt in them. Yes, that is absolutely right. So um, uh, I need to explain a bit here, because just imagine if you are arranging a kids party, a birthday party, Harindra sir, and if we set the party, like there is a play area, there are some balloons and all those things here and there, and there is a cake, and if the kids are coming in, we don't need to guide them what to do. So they will come and they will pick, they will interact, they will find out. The entire objective of that particular function um, will be managed. So it's like human beings also got that tendency. The entire system is actually having that tendency, but because of the control established for so many years, um, um, you know we are having that challenge. So it's not that exaggerated. There are definite researchers available, from ant theory to a human theory. So it's a new way of adopting nature's practice into human systems. It's possible.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question is from Dr. N. Panikar.
Okay.
Is there a similarity with model of self-management and synergy?
Synergy is more of like uh, we say like 1 plus 1 is not 2 but 3 kind of thing. It's again depends on the type of management theory that we are applying. Synergy is probably an outcome of self-organization.
Okay. Next question.
Yeah.
It's from Dr. N. Panikar itself. Your emphasis on leadership, does it not contradict with your model? Example of an ant does it support leadership role?
Exactly. The leadership that I'm referring here is from organization setup. Say, for example, if you think about a startup, a new startup, the leadership mean there is the people who set up that organization who got the vision of how my organization to perform and what is the purpose of my organization. So even though we are terming it as leadership, they are the people who identify how my organization should perform, what problem we are going to solve, all those things. So but within that organization they won't behave like a leader. I am the leader and you obey it, but they need to set up the organization culture. So that is why, sir, I meant the leadership there. Panikar, sir.
Okay, I guess that's all in the Q&A session.
Thank you.
So thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That was a really informative session. And if you could check the chat box, you can see that it's filled with messages from all participants of how magnificent the presentation was.
Thank you.
Now, let's move on to the vote of thanks. Let me welcome Professor S. Nandan to propose the vote of thanks. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening to all. So happy that we have concluded the 41st talk of the Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series. And today's session was, a very interesting, very insightful and motivating, I should say, modeling a self-organization. Let me come to my duty. My duty is to deliver the word of thanks. The speaker of the day, Mr. Harikutan Kochukunya, he's a very well-known person in the professional space among professionals. So, he's a management consultant and honorary secretary of PMI Kerala chapter. He very well explained, starting from the digital age leadership challenges. I know it was very much interesting listening to the nature theory, the ant colony principle, and all. So what are things that need to be changed, and he also very well explained and defined what a self-organization is. Then he explained about the what would leadership look if it depended on self-organization. No, the four focus areas of leadership, and the second colony, that was really interesting. How to model this self-organization and its characters. No, these are all very insightful, very much motivating, and thought-provoking kind of session. Very, very interesting session. So on behalf of all the partnering organizations, I would like to extend a very, very sincere thanks for your valuable time and sharing your knowledge and experience with the people out here. Thank you so much, sir, for your efforts to share the knowledge and for patiently answering the questions as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I also thank Harindral sir, who is the backbone of this webinar series. Who is a person behind these weekly webinar series. It's the 41st talk in this series. So thank you so much, Harindra sir, for wonderfully organizing once again this session. And I would also like to thank Suhair sir, Mr. Krishna Kumar, Mrs. Akila, and all other office bearers of the partnering organizations. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants patiently listening to this wonderful session. Thank you all for your active participation, asking questions and all. So hope you enjoyed a lot. So thank you so much all. And definitely we can meet in the next webinar series, next session. Okay, thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Nandan. Okay, so now I would like to thank you. Thanks to all dignitaries and all other attendees for your attention and your precious time. Thank you for being a part of the Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series and for coming and bestowing us with your presence. I also thank Harindra Lal sir for organizing the session. Now, okay, sorry for that. I welcome Harindra Lal sir.
Yeah, Athena, you can announce the next week's program also, please. It is in the,
Okay.
can you see that?
So, yeah, no, sir.
You
It's not
can't see the
visible.
screen? Okay,
No, sir.
sorry. Next week, we have the program on India's maiden Mars orbiter mission, a unique accomplishment in science and technology by Professor K.N. Nainan, PhD, outstanding scientist retired from VSSC. Next week, 27 January, Wednesday, this time, 42nd talk. I request all of you to attend. It's a very interesting, another interesting talk. Thank you very much.
So let's conclude our session. Henceforth, I declare the meeting as closed. Thank you so much, all the participants and all dignitaries. Thank you.
വിധിച്ച വീരണ്ടും വേലവ കാക്ക നാസികളിരണ്ടും